Hello and welcome to the Cellar one more time. I don't know what the weather's been like where you are, but it's been sucky hot here. Really hot. And lawns are already starting to burn out, and it's not even the 4th of July. Well, it'll be the 5th when you see this. But anyway, point being. Okay, let's roll. When I was in the Army overseas, I'd painted all my Axis and Allies minis because fantasy minis were hard to come by. So I was pleased when I saw Stefan do the same thing. Yeah, and now to be fair, and not taking anything from Stefano, they're not painted to miniatures quality, they're painted a color. So the Russian infantry are all one color and the Italian infantry are a different color. And the color is consistent throughout the nationality. But it's still a lot of work. It's more than just a simple dry wash, I'm afraid. But, of course, I'll have to do it, too. Sounds like you had a great trip out the Pacific side of the country. I think Axis and Allies does its job well for what it is. Kind of a dip your toe in the water version of broad World War II strategy. Think you have your work cut out for you with trying to add some historical accuracy in there. But since you brought up the subject, my thought would be, since I brought up the subject, I thought my would be to incorporate an attack on production through submarine warfare and blockade. I felt that A&A missed that part of the war effort. That's one I hadn't thought of yet. I'm trying to work on lasting damage to production because eventually there's no factories left to speak of. There was the underground stuff, but not more than a point or two worth of stuff, I wouldn't think. I'm just getting started on it. I'm working out a time frame of when to dig into it. Axis and Allies is a game that people have been tinkering with since it came out in the 80s. There are a lot of custom rules for the game out there. Many agree with you that it has a skeleton of decent system, but if you know more than the basics about the technologies, economies, and troop dispositions of World War II, the abstract verisimilitude, the very good word choice, falls apart really quick. Good luck with coming up with custom rules. Have you looked to see if somebody else has done what you plan to do? That way you don't have to do a lot of work yourself. No, and absolutely not. I don't want to see what anybody else has done. I'm going to work at it on my own from my own starting point, and if I happen to do something that somebody else may have already done, I can honestly say parallel development. And I firmly believe in parallel development. I've seen too many instances in my years in the industry of great ideas don't just come to one person. In some cases, it's just the guy that gets it published first. But no, I don't want to look at anything else. I want mine to be purely from out of my head and what I think ought to be. Though I've been thinking about degrading industry, and submarine warfare is a good thing to think about. What I'm leaning toward is eventually the industry is pounded and pounded and pounded until a lot of factories could not be rebuilt. And I'm going to see if I can find some way to incorporate strategic bombing and that aspect and set up separate rules for strategic bombing results, or we'll see. I'm just came today. It's a big booger, isn't it? Whoa! It's a big booger, and it comes in an even bigger box because they don't want to smoosh it. So, wow! I haven't even taken off the shrink wrap yet. I was pleased to see Dr. T make another appearance in the show. Your comments about Tolkien's perhaps overbearing influence on elves and D&D prompts me to ask you, How do you rate The Hobbit as inspiration for elvish tropes? All right, now, the writer here goes off on a little side jump, which is interesting. I find The Lord of the Rings an enduring entertainment, one that has even helped me through tough times, which is probably the most noble aspiration for a work of art, especially in these troubling times. But for me, The Hobbit is tops. The Hobbit got me into reading. I was one of those kids that didn't find the appeal of chapter books straight away. I took to comics and comic strip collections, but The Hobbit helped me get into prose literature. I still find passages of The Hobbit incredibly exciting even today after so many readings. I particularly enjoy the chaotic, playful, mysterious, and mercurial aspects of both the elves and the monsters in The Hobbit. The Hobbit story is more in the vein of Nordic, Russian, German folktales than the epic of The Lord of the Rings. And so too are its characters. The elves in Rivendell and in Mirkwood are somewhat playful or mischievous, rather than storied regal immortals, each star in their own epic. The Hobbit elves are capricious, and their gold lust is somehow more than and very human. So, the question, do you think The Hobbit is instructive in terms of inventive play? After all, there are scenes in The Hobbit where battling the monsters is just not the way out of the situation. Even with the giant spiders, violence is only really a stopgap. And if it weren't for the PC using invisibility to full advantage, the odds would have been overwhelming. I look forward to any thoughts you may kindly deign to put forth on these topics. Okay. First basic question, what do I think of The Hobbit? The Hobbit is what hooked me on fantasy. I was a sci-fi reader prior to that, and on the same weekend that I read The Hobbit, I also read a collection of Robert E. Howard Conan stories and science fiction paled. So I have a special attachment. And it can be known now, all these many years later, when my wife went into labor with our first child, I sat by her bedside and read The Hobbit to her from front to back. And so it'll always have that association for me. The Hobbits possess ingenuity and guile and a little bit of luck. It's true. But yeah, I think they can be a good role model for low-level players. Use your head. If you don't have any brawn or brute strength, then you got to use guile and trickery. And I think that's very much a part of D&D, is guile and trickery. Because I'm going to try to use it on you players, and you're going to try to use it on me, DM. Part of the game. So yeah, they're a good object lesson in working together, taking advantage of whatever small advantage you might have. Though I will say being invisible isn't necessarily a small advantage. However, be that as it may, yeah, they can be instructive in that regard. Next one. This talk of Axis and allies makes me want to play advanced squad leader. Well, they're hardly the only similarity the only kinship they share is World War II. Several years ago, before he died, I reconnected with John Hill, who designed the original squad leader. And he was adamant that he had not had anything to do with advanced squad leader, which he felt was terrible. Now, that said, every designer thinks that his game is perfect and needs no tampering. That's fine. It should be that way. And he was angry because he was not consulted, was not brought into the project, and done without his input. Now, I don't know exactly, but I rather imagine the contract Avalon Hill had with him over squad leader pretty much took care of his objections, and they didn't need his okay. But anyway, squad leader. I remember the first individual counter, one person, one counter board game. When I was down at Carbondale, it came out in Strategy and Tactics, and it was called Sniper. And you had a squad of soldiers, each of you, and you were working your way through this urban area. And I can remember that all gamers will exploit something they think is an exploit. And I remember that rifle grenades were horribly popular in that game, even though, from what I've read and researched, they weren't nearly as accurate as the shooters may have cared for. They were deadly accurate in that game. So rifle grenades were always favored weapon. But anyway, that game was so unique. It was individual soldiers. And I believe this is before I'd played D&D for the first time. So you weren't playing 6 individuals, but you were starting to break down into that group mentality that slid right in. Hello, I'm sure you've answered these questions hundreds of times. I'm fast approaching the backside of 50, and I'm beginning to explore the people who shaped the D&D style of gaming that I've enjoyed since '83. I noticed your name on the acknowledgements and the Mulvey basic rules. What was your role in that? I believe I also saw your name on a Christmas stocking on the cover of a December issue of Dragon. If my name was on a Christmas stocking on a cover of Dragon, I'm unaware of it. It may have been that some artist stuck it in there as a little Easter egg or something. I'm unaware of it. I'd love to see it. And the acknowledgement, the Mulvey basic. I'm in the acknowledgements for all the first edition. I'm in the acknowledgements or the edited, all the stuff at the end of OD&D. Lots of names in there. And it was a conscious attempt to thank everybody who'd ever helped us out in one way or another, whether it was playtesting or just being available to bounce ideas off of, have ideas that were incorporated, just blended seamlessly. So I had no direct, but it was an homage to my foundational work, I guess you'd call it. I don't call it that, but I guess you might. So I'm sure that's all it was. I didn't even know Tom Mulvey for several years after I left. And again, if you know what issue of the magazine that was on, I'd sure like to see the cover. I have the first 350 on the discs. So if it's one of those, I got a copy of it. Welcome back. Love your Facebook page as well. You're asking for comments and questions. And I don't have anything deeply profound to ask. So, okay. What is your least favorite character class? What class do you hate to play or DM for? All right, now. Fighter, fighting man, that's what it was called. Cleric, magic user, thief. I'm okay with thieves. Or rogues if you must, because of political correctness. I'm okay with that too. Druids, bards, and all the rest of them are garbage. So I wouldn't want to play any of those. I wouldn't want to DM any of them. Personal preference. I don't want to DM a game where I have to remember that everybody at the table, pardon me a minute, I forgot something. There, I have to put my chair up farther. So, Jim says this way you can see more of me. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but okay. So, just scab all the rest of those others. You didn't need a thief. Okay? You didn't need this cat purse, this burglar who can climb walls and stuff. That's out of a Conan story. And I as a DM, I can't provide enough opportunities to go climbing up towers and killing giant snakes and stealing jade ornaments. But it's really, really good to have a shifty character in your group who knows things about hidden doors and passages and traps and things like that. So, okay, I wrapped around that finally, and all right, I can say they got kind of overpowered. The just double strike from behind thing is, a possibility of it perhaps, but not an automatic cudgel that knocks out something that's no. Anyway, I don't need a ranger because a ranger is just a fighter that's decided to live in the woods. I don't like all the special abilities. Now, a bard, for instance, a first edition bard, absolutely brilliant character class. Simply because it's so hard to master. Brilliant character class. Druids, as originally published, yeah, they're fine because it's going to take you forever to get to be anything with any juice, with any power. The rest of them don't need them. I wouldn't, if I had a mythic, a cosmic anti-aircraft gun, I'd shoot down Dragonborn whenever I saw them. That's just one of the most way overpowered ideas I've ever seen. That's a video game character. Not a valid tabletop role-playing character, in my opinion. And a famous friend of mine loves playing one of them, so, oh well. You can certainly have Tolkien-esque high elves and lesser elves, the silly little ones, and have both tropes coexist. You can, but then call them something else. We don't need to confuse new players anymore. We don't need to confuse ourselves anymore. Elves, okay. Oh, you mean high elves, low elves? All right, call Tolkien-esque elves, okay? And then call the others sprites, or find a an old German word that would pertain to something like this, and make it up. And so, okay, high elves, yeah, don't mess with them. Low elves, they're a pain in your butt. Or not. And there are many, many examples in European folklore of the ones that are not. All right, let's see. Got a fair number of comments tonight. While I agree that French words ending in the ETT are not pronounced with an AY sound, I am also reminded of a quote by George Carlin. George, my hero, from a very young age. You can spell your name Smith and pronounce it Janowski if you want to. Yep. All right. Hey, Tim, love the channel. Thank you for communicating. Psionics is getting some attention again in D&D. As the Ogar creator of D&D Psionics, how would you create a character class that was focused on psionic powers? I wouldn't. But I'll continue. Oh, no, that's the end of that one. I wouldn't. Psionics was meant to be the possibility that there might be a way of defeating that mind flayer that was at the heart of what your group was trying to do by going and finding an NPC, a non-player character, a specialist, who could then come and take on the mind flayer. The Psionics was created because there was no defense against several monster types existent at the time. It was only supposed to be the rarest chance that the smallest number of possible player characters might have a propensity for psionics. Maybe. And then they had to go develop them. I mean, I say that, and I know at the same time we all knew that as soon as I published that, everybody's going to be a psionic. Well, that's okay. It kept the game interesting. It's not what it was meant to be, but it kept the game interesting. And why not? But no, in Tim's world, psionics is very rare. If a mind flayer came through from that other dimension that they exist in, then there would be means to meet them on a somewhat level playing field. Whether it was an NPC or a magic item or something of that nature. I would never, ever have a class as being some psionicist, because then they're just some sort of weird special wizard, and what's the difference? And again, they would be unstoppable. If you could have a human player character achieve the same skill level and ability of a juvenile or young adult mind flayer, well, that's it. Hello, world domination. Because now you just run around and you flay the minds of hundreds and hundreds of people because they have no defense. Psionics should be treated very, very carefully. Can be a very unstabilizing element. Sorry, I forgot I had to do something here. It can be a very unstabilizing element in your campaign. It should be treated with the utmost respect. Okay. What are you doing over there, cat? Oh, my cats are into something. Thanks for your contribution to my favorite hobby, playing since 83, DMing 84. Gygaxian style campaign since 89. I might still be the one. I might be one of the few who still use AD&D Psionics as written, borrowing the expanded list from the complete Psionics book 2E. Never liked that system. Have you ever considered revisiting your system and tweaking it to what it could have evolved into? Kind of like what Joseph Locke did with his Adventures Dark and Deep, or take even Castles and Crusades. I very much enjoy your perspective, which predates my own by a decade. Adventure well. And he signs his real name because of YouTube's, he doesn't like that. and that's fine. No, I don't. I don't want to refine them. I don't. I don't think they need it. And who am I doing it for? Okay, I'm not going to sell it. And quite frankly, I'm retired. And unless there's something to be achieved from doing something, whether it's immense self-satisfaction or a paycheck. Now the Axis and Allies thing, well, that's a lot of reasons I'm going to look into doing that. A lot of reasons, some of which are 30 years, 40 years old. Can you tell us why D&D was set in a medieval European society, albeit a fancy version? Why not a Conan-esque pre-deluge setting or a Romanesque setting or anything else? Do you know if there's a process of elimination to pick a setting? Dave's first campaign was pretty medieval in its setting. Gary saw that and said, okay. I don't know that they reached the consensus or whatever, but I do know that medieval history is something that we've all been exposed to in school. Now, I don't know what we're all going to be. They're all going to be teaching in 10 years in school, but those of us that were in at the bottom there building this stuff, we all knew. We had a generalized understanding of medieval history, and a lot of the fantasy books that had been written up to that time were also based in a common background, setting, world, immersion, pick your word. And so it would be so much more difficult to get you to go play something like Mahakitl, where it's a complete immersion into the Aztec world. Now here, and remember, this was aimed at males, primarily because males were the only ones playing with miniatures. Now you can do something like all the movies that we watched, Ivanhoe and the Black Shield and all those Hollywood movies that were great fun to watch and not very accurate. Well, we all had a sense of what a tilt field looked like, and Hollywood's version. There was a lot of good fantasy written with that kind of background, that kind of feel. And it's easy to be vague in that kind of background. You don't have to pin down a date. If you say serfs, S-E-R-F-S, if you say serfs, well, people have a general idea of when serfdom was. And so that gives you a setting and a jumping off point. I really think that it was probably Dave's Bronstein game, and it's kind of medievalish setting, and I'm sure that's probably what chose the setting. We couldn't possibly go drop you into feudal Japan. There was a company that came out with a game called Bushido that was a flash in the pan, mainly because it was so foreign to drop you into all of that. That's why Empire of the Petal Throne didn't do all that well. It was dropping you into a milieu that you had no touch points, no focal points from, or two. Have you ever had to DM with absolutely no preparation? Yes. If so, what was it like for seasoned DM such as yourself? And please furnish us with an example of your thought process on dealing with DMing for a situation or NPC that you've not prepared sufficiently for. Well, forget the NPC. NPCs are only there because I put them there and they're only going to do within a certain range of what I want them to do. This possibility of going rogue or something, but okay, that's not a problem for me. But what I haven't prepared for, we've all had to DM on a twist in the player's fancies, yes. Throwaway NPC made up on the fly suddenly becomes the focus of the party's attention. Oh God, yes, we've all had that one. How do you deal with that? Well, gaming on the fly. I believe I've given the example of what I had to do several years ago at a Total Con. I had only brought 3 adventures and was doing 4 games, and hadn't realized that people would sign up for multiples, so they'd already played it. So there was nothing I could run in the fourth adventure, fourth game session that I hadn't already done. So I had a color print of a map that I'd made with the Age of Wonders map editing program of an enormous city. So I said, okay, you've all been hired, and they had all been hired to guard something, and they'd failed, and they had 24 hours to fix it, or they were all going to be legless, running around on stumps. And so you go here, all right, what are you going to do? All right, I think we ought to go, and I think we ought to go, and, and without going into detail. They ran off and did things. They came, and so they said, we're going to do this. And so I worked my way around 4 or 5 different groups, come back to the first one. You found this. You found nothing. And I just made it up based on what they were doing. And we had some preposterous things happen that were just so frustrating on the part of me, the DM, and so preposterously silly that they were getting away with it as the players. You just got to be ready to go, and cut your lines loose and go with the flow. Remember, you're still in charge. You can still shape it. You can be a real rigid person and do it this way, or you can go, all right, let's all of us see what we're going to do together, and let the players have more of a hand in making up the story, and maybe have a little silly fun, and maybe not be so deadly serious that you end up with ulcers at 20. Never know, you might enjoy it. After all, gaming's supposed to be about fun. And when you get something that's the focus of the attention that shouldn't have been, after a while, I'll just tell them, I think you might be barking up the wrong tree. And if they can't figure, where we're going with that, there's no point in letting them, if they want to hair off down the hall after something they thought they saw, fine, let them run 150 feet down the hall and come to a cave-in. Oh, guess we'll go back the other way. And when I've had situations, especially back in the earliest days, when I didn't have the right turn right drawn out yet, I had only prepared for go straight or turn left, and they wanted to turn right, fine. Go down about 75 feet, you notice it's all caved in. Sorry, guess you'll have to go left. Guess you'll have to go left or ahead after all. You developed it, you designed it, and if you don't want them going down there, don't. You're not keeping anything from them. You're not cheating them out of anything. Hell, there isn't anything down there yet. That's the way I do it. Oh, another comment on Axis and Allies. I looked at it but never played it. As an old Evelyn Hill fan, it struck me as too light. but your mention of it reminded me of Risk. Haha, there was a great game. The first Wargame adjacent game I ever played. Yeah, it's Wargame adjacent. It's world domination. As I got older and learned about other more realistic games, I always tried to think of some way to convert Risk into a more real wargaming, whatever that means. What's your experience, if any, with Risk, and have you ever run into any rules conversions that helped the game? I played it a lot, and nope, I've not been subjected or exposed to any rule changes, any significant rule changes that I'm aware of. Nothing significant. Risk is it's a good strategy game. It's not a strategy about sending in your armor over and crushing the infantry. It's about where you build up your strength and when you make your move and whatever like that. And it's a good training game. It's a great training game. So, my tomorrow is the 4th of July. When you see this, you'll be dealing with a hangover or not being able to sleep all night because the idiots in the neighborhood shot stuff off till 3 a.m. In any event, I hope it was fun. Oh, and someone pointed out again that we're late again, producer, about changing our copyright date. It's now 2025. Thank you again for pointing that out once more. I guess, yeah, not much we can say about it. We're into the 7th month. Yeah, well, we screwed the pooch on that one. Thanks for pointing it out. We'll get it fixed. In the meantime, it's summertime. There's cons coming up, the big cons. If you've never been to a con and you're curious, you'll never know until you try. Never know. If you're planning on going to Gen Con, well, you're already too late unless you've already got your tickets. And I quit going to Gen Con because it's just too frickin' big. I was getting stepped on in my scooter. Can't be having that. So, in any event, if you're going to a con, enjoy it. If you're not going to a con, stay cool. Stay indoors. We've even got an air quality warning till tomorrow afternoon. Wonderful. As if we haven't had enough funny weather. But everybody's having funny weather. I understand that. It's just not me bitching about... Well, I am bitching about ours, but I understand a whole lot of you got unpleasant weather also. Or just downright hateful weather. And those of you who don't, well, I wish I was there with you. I guess that's all. So, until next time, do dada govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
The Curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the Curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.